guys, it's Eric G from Around the House, and I am thrilled to announce that our massive back catalog, nearly 1,900 episodes packed with home improvement tips, DIY hacks, and expert advice, is now available for free. Dive into years of inspiration to tackle on your next project. And just a heads up, some podcast players limit how far back you can go. So if you can't find it all, just head straight over to our website, aroundthehouseonline.com, and listen to every episode there. Don't miss out. Start binging today. And thanks for tuning in to Around the House.
Everybody stop what you're doing, please!
When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is no better show on your radio. This is Around the House with Eric G.
Where's the hammer?
From your back fence to the sidewalk, Eric will tell you how to keep it all in tip-top shape while helping you save a buck while doing it. If you like DIY projects, it takes a lot of practice to get good at it, and Eric is here to guide the way.
Is it on the... Go up on the other floor. Somebody go up there and stop the hammering.
All that and more on the fastest 2 hours of home improvement radio.
These are the wrong plans. These are the old plans. Oh.
Welcome to
Stop it!
Around the House with Eric G.
Welcome to Around the House with Eric G. This is where we talk home improvement every single weekend. We're your owner's manual for your house. Thanks for joining us. We've got a fun show ahead today, but first let's do a little housekeeping. If you want to be a part of the show and you've got a home improvement question, we're always here to help. There's two ways you can get a hold of us that are easy. That's head over to our website, aroundthehouseonline.com, and you can send us a message over there. You can also hit us up on social media as well. But really, if you want to have something in the show with a question, 971-233-8992. Call us 24 hours a day. We'll call you back, put you in the middle of the show, and make sure that question gets answered 100% for you. That way you've got all the information you need to finish that project. Now, we're talking about social media here. With social media, you can hit us up Around the House with Eric G. We're on Facebook. That's where we have probably the most content. But Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those things, you can find the most of it right there. Well, I wanted to give a quick shout out here to WKEI, Quad Cities area, the talk of Tri-Counties. Welcome to Around the House. Now, I want to make sure that you guys get everything taken care of with your home improvement questions, so you can always ask these questions. We're not naturally going to put you at the front of the line, so I want to make sure that you've got that. So either way you want to get a hold of us, we're going to help you out with those home improvement questions. Well, we've got a big show ahead today that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this. We have, later on the show, we're going to be talking with Jamie Gold and her book, Wellness by Design. We're going to be talking about how to make a home designed to be smart, healthy, kind of optimizing your home for health, fitness, and happiness. So we'll be talking to her about that new book that just came out, and you can get that at just about any bookstore. But really, we're going to be talking smart home and smart home security here. This is where we're going to really do some deep dive in here about how to kind of get things dialed in, because, you know, we've had enough problems out there with home security and things like that around the country. It's been a hot topic in 2020. So we're going to talk about that and how to mix that in with your smart home so you can, well, maybe take a look at those cameras, take a look at that kind of stuff, and make sure it's all going to work well for you. So that's one of the key parts to that. And smart homes is kind of one of my passions. I do a lot of speaking with that to contractors and people. So make sure that we get all that information out to you. So that's the big one right there. And then I hope everybody's doing well. We've got some big shows coming up ahead outside of this. When we're talking this, we're going to have, we'll be talking tile. We've got more design products coming up. We're going to be talking cabinetry. So there's a lot of different things coming up here in December that we're going to try to all fit in here by the end of the year. I can't believe we're already getting to those kind of shows for 2020. We've got a fun show here today. Raman Sidhu, who is the project and strategy leader for Xfinity Home and Comcast Home Security and Smart Home Business. Welcome, brother, to Around the House.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Eric. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on today. You know, I'm a customer of your guys'. This isn't some kind of crazy paid commercial, so don't worry about that, everybody. But I love bringing on experts from you guys to talk about things that I'm still learning about as well, which, one thing with smart home technology, it is always changing. And these days with home security being such a hot topic, I wanted to bring you on and just talk about some of the stuff that you guys do because, quite frankly, I'm impressed. I just installed some of your cameras in this weekend and was moving my Ring system around. I love what you guys are doing with this stuff.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric. We really have spent a lot of time on the technology. We've been in the security space for about 8 years now, but, as you saw with those cameras, we are trying to extend and expand the definition of what we can offer customers. I think there's a lot of value in different experiences, and not everyone values those experiences kind of equally. I think there's different segments of the market that we find ourselves kind of finding, hey, what's the right product that might meet the needs of this customer versus that customer, and that's where kind of I spend on the product and strategy side thinking through. And so, love to talk a little bit about that and talk about smart home more holistically as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was putting those up this weekend, and my neighbor next door was like, "What are you putting those up for? We don't have any problems around here." And it's everybody lives in a different neighborhood, and I don't care where you're at, if you're out in the country, the city, or whatever you're doing. And, I'm not doing it so much for a security thing because I'm not really concerned about that. However, I've lived in places where, I'll be honest, I came home one day when I lived in Seattle and I saw somebody had pulled up and literally ripped the garage doors off the front of my shop and every tool was missing. So I've had multiple different experiences. And now with smart home stuff, there are so many things you can do as a homeowner pretty easily. Of course, have somebody to come in. When I first moved into this house a year ago, I had, I'll call it brand X out there because I don't like talking bad about people, but I probably removed a 50-gallon trash bag full of low voltage wire where 25, 30 years ago, somebody had put in a security system and there were wires everywhere in the middle of just outside the house, running inside a wall on base trim. It is so much better now.
Yeah, I think that's different definitions of security, obviously, and people have different needs. And so some people obviously need and want the full-blown security system where the cops or the fire department, emergency services, they'll respond. And I think that's a level of peace of mind that has been in the market for 20, 30 years and will continue to do so. But I think there's this, what you kind of touched on with cameras and other smart home technology to provide new use cases, to provide still solving for that kind of peace of mind a little bit, but also there's a curiosity element too. With cameras always connected, hey, when did my kids come home from school? Was the package delivered? Who ran over the light at the end of my driveway? That's happened to me twice now in the last year, and without having a camera pointed out there, I would not have known that it was a delivery driver, and that obviously helps me going back to that delivery company to get that taken care of. So there's different things that people can get excited about to just solve little problems in their life.
Well, it's funny, and I've told this story on the radio before, but I had, my wife and I now, we got married this last summer, went up in the mountains. We were 5 hours away from here, and had my buddy who's our co-host of the show here, Dane. He was staying at the house, and one of the dogs got out while he was at the radio station. Neighbor found it, and I'm 5 hours away. And I'm like, all right, man, hey, let me get on my phone here. I'm going to open the garage door up and just slide him in. And, he'll be good inside the house. And it worked really well. I could unlock a door from a distance. I could open up the garage door. There were multiple different options with that. And it worked out really well. And it was one of those, this smart home system did so much more versus, can you hold on to my dog till my buddy's off at 2 o'clock in the morning?
100%. Yeah, I've got... everyone kind of in this space probably has a story like that. My story in a similar situation was we were in, Florida with my in-laws over the holidays one year, and we had something delivered, and there's no way to really do that because the delivery person had a set timeline, and I was able to, from my app, Chamberlain garage door connected to Xfinity Home system, I was able to unlock the garage door, and boom, he delivered it to the fridge that was in the garage. And so, look, that's the type of stuff where, it's those little stories that kind of can unlock value that you may not see it at the beginning. You don't wake up in the morning and say, you know what, today's the day I'm going to go buy the smart lock or the garage door opener, right? You kind of need this storytelling and hear from people like you and others in the industry to unlock kind of the power of the smart home.
And there's a lot of other things too, as you know, with energy efficiency and everything else out there. There's so many different things you can do out there. But I really love what you guys are doing on home security because, you know, without getting political, because we don't do this in the show at all, we don't touch on it, but, you know, things are not getting safer out there in many areas right now. We've got some crime, a lot of it's pandemic, whatever we want to put as a label on it, and it's the holidays right now too, so we've got that on top of it. This is, to me, primetime package theft season, and all of these things can sure help make, you know, your life a little bit safer if you set things up correctly. Cameras don't stop thieves, but at least they'll document stuff. And of course, you can set it up to the different levels like you talked about. If you want to have it where it's setting an alarm off, if somebody busts a door in and kicks a door in or whatever, you can have that security all within your smart home setup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that package theft thing is critical now for the holidays. And, you know, I live in the suburbs and kind of where I live, I don't get many cars driving by. So I don't really have to worry about that too much. But other colleagues and friends of mine who live in the city, you know, it's a big problem when you're just, things are getting left out on doorsteps, on, you know, and on stoops, and a camera helps. A camera, a doorbell, all of those types of things can help alleviate those problems.
More in our conversation with Raman Sidhu from Xfinity Home here in just a few minutes. Make sure you head over to Facebook, Around the House with Eric G, or AroundTheHouseOnline.com if you've got your own questions where we can help you in next week's show. That way, you can give us a call into the studio here at 971-233-8992, or hit us up at Facebook, Around the House with Eric G. We'll be right back after these important messages. I want to introduce you to our new sponsor on Around the House with Eric G. I absolutely despise having to carry water softener salt and load it up. Well, if you're like me, then I have a solution for you. Check out Natural Soft. Natural Soft solves those hard water issues using a catalytic process. And when you combine it with one of their filtration systems, you now have a complete water treatment system for you and your family. For clean, soft water you can depend on from Natural Soft, head to solosalescompany.com. Check the podcast show notes for details and make sure and tell them Eric G sent you. Welcome back to Around the House with Eric G. This is where we talk home improvement every single weekend. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we've been sitting here talking with Raman Sidhu from Xfinity, and we've been talking about home security and some of the latest technology for smart home stuff. Let's get back out to that interview right now and continue talking with Raman. So where do you think, you have been in this smart home technology field for a long time. Where do you see things now versus where they're going in the future with, all of this home type stuff as far as it's going into security? Because, it's getting easier and easier to use, it seems, every single year for the homeowner that's having to navigate through these systems.
Yeah, I think there's still a couple of challenges, I think, to get kind of mainstream. I think there's people that are on the tech adopter kind of front end of cutting edge, like to spend time with the DIY kind of side of things. They're willing to spend their Saturday installing devices and really getting things to work. I'm not saying that you have to be a programmer. It's moved beyond that. It's gotten easier and easier as time has gone by. But there's still this kind of element of, for mass market, do it for me. Like they need help installing. Not everyone's going to be comfortable getting on a ladder to drill a hole to install a camera in a certain place. Some people will, and I think a lot of people are getting more and more comfortable with that, but some are going to need help. So how do you, ensure that there's kind of a support network built out to manage with smart homes? I think that's kind of one of the big challenges kind of right now. The other is that, how do you think about the cost? Because not everyone's going to be able to dish out, $300, $400, $500 at a time to buy this hardware. So how can you, make it easier for consumers to, get things, one or two things at a time to start building their smart home kind of brick by brick. I like to use that comment a lot, that it's, it's not everyone's gonna get everything all at once. They're gonna find a use case. They're gonna have the garage situation with their pet, or a water leak sensor. So one of their neighbors had something happen with water leaks, so they add on some things to provide this greater and greater peace of mind story. And I think that's something that we want to try to work through and help consumers with. Where it goes, where I think this space is going is hopefully more ambient, hopefully more, hey, it's not that the user has to do a lot of work to set up everything themselves, or to be notified of things themselves. It's how can we create systems and have sufficient AI and ML, machine learning and artificial intelligence, so that it's about, let me present to you the contextual information that matters. Like, okay, there was a water leak, but hey, it's not just about, let me give you the notification. It's, hey, I've already alerted the plumber that you've selected in the app to be your point person, and they're on their way, and you can unlock your door automatically to let them in to fix the problem. It's that, let me bring these things together to create more value to the customer.
Yeah, it's great. I was talking to my buddy who's he's an amazing guy down in Texas, and so he's a Texas plumber that does a bunch of stuff, Roger Wakefield, and yeah, he's got it set up with his plumbing business, so when he installs those, that they can be notified right from the machine, basically telling him, hey, you've got a leak, and it basically calls into the call center for him, and all of a sudden he can get somebody out there. So that technology is there now, and like you were saying, that's where really things begin to start working, because now it's not just a cool product that you're using, you're actually finding solutions and saving yourself a ton of damage, because maybe you had a pipe burst someplace. That water sensor knew that a pipe burst, it shut the water off and called the plumber, and maybe by the time you were home in the afternoon, they've already locked themselves out as they left, and everything's taken care of. That is where smart home technology becomes really efficient for almost anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it's not just about the security use cases anymore then, right? It's about the further peace of mind and cost savings and kind of efficiency in the home. I certainly agree. There's a lot of cool use cases now, cool kind of lifestyle things, if you will, that make me more happy and my kind of home experience more enjoyable. But that's not for everyone. And I think, but I think when you can get down into these use cases that are really about saving people money, saving people time, I think that's where there's going to be real value created.
It's funny because I'm a national speaker, and you do a lot of speaking as well, nationally as well, and it's. I dive into this stuff, one, because it's, what I do for work, but two, I'm curious to see how things work and play together. My wife is exactly the opposite. She gets scared of things and won't use them until she becomes comfortable with them. And that's her style. And so when I first started putting in a few years ago, smart home things, she wouldn't even touch it. She didn't want anything to do with it. It was like, I'll just use this other light over here because I don't want to have to touch this or turn this on. And then all of a sudden, kind of the light switch went in her head where I wasn't remembering having to turn on the front lights. The Christmas lights over the holidays turn on by themselves, and everything is kind of on its own system. And then the light switch came on, like, oh, we don't have to remember to do all these things. We've just got it automated, so it's turning on when and when we don't. And now we don't have to change the thermostat. We've got that tuned in. There's some of those things that I think that people don't realize until they get it and go, oh, this is actually making life easier, where the initial perception is it's more difficult.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine going back to a world where I didn't have, ambient voice controls to adjust my lights, with Alexa and Google Assistant in the home. I tinker with both because I think they're both great products. So sure. I think, going back to not having that is going to be really strange. And I echo that, on my wife kind of, for her experience is like, look, every night she uses Alexa to say, Alexa, good night, and all the house lights turn off. And
Same
and
thing.
That's just a quick thing that, it's so easy that, you can be sitting in one room of the house and everything kind of shuts off. The other cool one that I set up that I often tell folks about is that I put little, we have, for the security system, we have these little sensors. They're, kind of alluding to what you were talking about earlier with all the hard wiring. Like our sensors are wireless. They're a little Zigbee door window sensor with a magnet in it. So when the door opens and closes, you send an alert.
Yeah.
And that's typically used for the security use cases on kind of external doors.
Sure.
So what I did in my home was I actually put both of those on my kids' rooms. And when they open their doors, and they're little, I mean, my daughter is 4, my son is 7, so they're young. But if they were to open their door between the hours of 8 p.m. and 7 a.m., which is the time I've set, then not only would I get a notification on my phone, but a light would turn on in my bedroom. So I can essentially get out of bed and cut them off at the pass so that they don't sneak into our room and say, creepily wake us up in the middle of the night. It's a little bit of a, how do we just, and now they've gotten, much better at staying in their rooms. But, for a while, that was our little, oh gosh, here comes another kid. We need to go cut them off so they get back in bed.
Yeah, get out of the fridge. You're not supposed to have that ice cream or dessert or anything else out there. So, it's smart. And, man, I tell you what, I'm thankful my parents didn't have that when I was a kid, because that probably would have cut me down by about 50% of the trouble I got into at night. So that
Absolutely.
But that's an innovative way to use this technology, because that in itself is its own security thing. Because, okay, if the kids go running out the door and decide they want to go play in the backyard at 2 o'clock in the morning for some crazy idea, which I never had that happen with my kids, but I've seen other people do it. Well, that just gave you a notification, and that's pretty valuable when it comes to being a parent.
Yeah, I know, and I think that's where the cameras come into play too. With the camera services that we have, we have those motion notifications. You have like filters where you can kind of adjust it to see are those pets or those vehicles, all those types of use cases. And I think that's where this stuff is going. It's just going to be you're notified. You don't want to get, and I think to the question of like, hey, where is it going? You don't want to be notified of the things that you don't care about. Like you don't care about the leaves blowing in the wind, or that the sun is changing direction, or there was a big storm and there's a whole bunch of rain that's setting off your cameras. Like, it needs to be tuned in so that it alerts you to the things that matter, and it's not overburdening you with notifications. I think that's where there will be some distrust kind of from a consumer side of like, if I'm getting buzzed every minute, with something, like, you're just going to turn it off, and then it becomes, not as valuable. So it's about that balance.
Yeah, if your cameras, whatever camera system you set up on the front of your house, for instance, and it's clicking off every single car that drives down the road because you weren't able to or didn't adjust the settings on it where you can, basically set up that active range, you're just naturally going to ignore that. Where if you've got a setup going, hey, somebody's pulling down the driveway, who's that? It changes everything. But at the same point with this, the other things you can do with it, it's interesting. I've had listeners say, hey, my, Ring camera system that I had a few years ago kept going off, and I realized that I had a rodent problem outside, that there were mice and rats running around in the yard, and it was catching those running between the houses. And I thought, that's interesting, that was catching that. But I will say, after putting your guys' cameras, and be honest, I've had people here on the show that have listened for a while know that I've had a Ring system for 3 years. Your cameras, this is new technology, but still, your cameras are night and day clearer. The night vision technology is better. It's got a wider angle lens. I had them up just, doing a head-to-head competition. And, of course, it's not as fair because I am using probably a 2-year-old stick-up camera. But, man, big difference in quality and night vision. So hats off to you guys for doing that correctly.
No, thanks. Yeah, no, we're really proud of that. And I think, one of the things that also kind of comes into play with our cameras that I don't know if you noticed during the install is that the Wi-Fi, what's actually communicating back to your home network is in that power adapter.
Yeah.
So in those kind of examples, when customers put the cameras outside their house, on the front, like you, or in the backyard, et cetera, depending on your home structure, right? If you've got a brick house or, stucco or stone, what have you, you can have pretty poor Wi-Fi just outside, your house. So by bringing that Wi-Fi power plug inside and plugging that kind of, there's plenty of lead that you can use with that. I think it just provides a better customer experience because your cameras are going to be more reliable. They're not going to fall offline as much as you might see with others on the market. So I think that's kind of one of the interesting things that we did from a kind of a pure hardware perspective.
Yeah, and you guys don't have that latency as well, because sometimes I'll see something, like I'll get a notification on other brands' products, and I'll hit because I test a lot of stuff out here. I'll go over to that app or whatever, or to my smart home, click on it, and then I've got 10 or 15 seconds before it decides to wake up and give me a live picture, which to me is always frustrating. And knock on wood, so far, man, it's. I get over to into my home app, for instance, and click on that real quick, and boom, it's there within a second or so, which is pretty handy, because by the time I'm looking at it, I want to see what's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I appreciate that. I think the technology teams have been kind of focused on reliability, time to start up. I mean, those are all things that consumers really care about. So how do we make our system more efficient? How do you make that video stream being cached in a certain way so the little bits of thumbnails and others can be presented a lot faster to make that startup time so fast, which we've been pretty proud of.
Yeah, we had a crime at my other house before I moved that had happened, 7 or 8 doors down. It was a high school kid that was, obviously we found out afterwards had been selling drugs and got in a fight with another little high school drug dealer. Kid got shot in his own house, and the suspect went running down the street in front of my house. And so it was really weird for the first time in my life, a few years ago, pulling off footage off my camera to give to the police on a zip drive. I was like, this is pretty wild. This actually captured, and it did capture it,
Yeah.
And
and I think that's the great thing about these cloud connected cameras now. I mean, you don't have to have, a hard disk in your home. I know there's, older technology, like we talked about earlier, there's different technologies and it's always getting better and better. But with everything being stored in the cloud now, it's so easy for you or anyone to just download the appropriate video clip and share it, electronically, or save it to a thumb drive, like you said. It's just gotten simpler, and I think that's what's the benefit. And I think it's more secure. I mean, from a privacy standpoint, we as Comcast, we have a very strong commitment to our customer data, customer privacy, and I think that's just it's important in kind of everything that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things. And to be honest, if you're as a consumer, many consumers already are pretty wary of voice activated smart home technology, because first off, people get weirded out with a machine listening to them inside their house 24/7. And that natural hesitancy seems to come out when people first jump into this. And then I guess the other thing is you don't have to put that type of technology in your house with a smart home. If you don't want to have voice-activated technology and you want to have a little different privacy, it can all be done by smart home adapters and apps and stuff where you're literally setting things up. But if you want to view something, you can click on it versus using your voice.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've done too with within the Xfinity app. One of the things that we put front and center of that product experience is around privacy and controls of the smart home technology in your home or the connected devices in your home. We found a lot of consumers, we would look at our data and see that customers on the weekends the cameras would go offline, and then on Monday cameras would go back online. And you saw this in broad segments of our customer base.
Wow.
And as we started to survey them and understand kind of what was happening, was that customers were actually unplugging their cameras. Because when they were home on the weekends and the camera was inside their home, for example, they were like, look, I don't want it. I'm concerned about the privacy issue, and rightfully so, if that's what
Sure.
they choose to believe in. So they were unplugging their cameras. And so we said, look, how can we make it easier for our customers to know that in our app, in the Xfinity app, you can actually go in and toggle the Wi-Fi off to any device.
Yeah.
And you can actually tell that security story and say, look, I'm going to kill the Wi-Fi to that piece of hardware from the gateway. So there is no internet traffic going on that. And that's kind of the things that we can do because we're both the connectivity, the internet company, and the device company to make these, the smart home story easier for consumers to manage their privacy and security.
Yeah, and what I like about it, using for instance with you guys, having that, with Xfinity Home and being you're dealing with a security or camera system, and then you've got TVs. You've got a way now to monitor via app and through the TV as well, correct?
Yeah. So it's a great kind of use case that if you're sitting at home and you wanted to see what happened, you're watching your favorite TV show and you hear something outside, or you get a notification from your camera that there was motion, you can actually bring up using the voice remote, say, hey, Xfinity cameras, and it will pop up on the screen, and you can filter on your different cameras. You can look back at recorded video. And so it's just a nice interface that we've done that, look, we've got the best video product, we've got the best broadband and internet product, and we have the best home security product. And how do we continue to bring those together to create new experiences for customers? I think it's a great way for them to interact with the system and the service to get everything out of it.
And what I like is maybe you've got friends coming over watching a game or something like that, and you don't have to get up and get the door or something like that. You can, or keep an eye on that door. You can be sitting there and let that camera ring off, basically, that, hey, somebody's pulling up in front of your house. You could pull it up on the TV, and you're not having to get up and go to the door and check to see if that was somebody pulling up. There's a lot of cool little uses with that you don't have to worry about.
We've done it with our kids, where we've had, pre-pandemic, of course, when we've had play dates with other kids over in the backyard. We can just set that up so the camera's streaming the backyard, and me and the parents can be upstairs and hanging out, enjoying our Saturday afternoon. And it's a little bit more peace of mind that you don't have to be hovering over your kids, but you can at least know and see and to make sure they're not getting into too much trouble out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've got that with the dogs. When I moved one of the cameras to the back here this weekend, when the dogs are out playing in the backyard, I wanted to make sure that they're getting along and not playing too rough out there between it, because they're two puppies. And it was cool to be able to go, they're chilling out. Great. I didn't have to go up and which window are they out of the backyard? So it's smart.
Pet cam is a real high use case. In our research, when we talk to customers, like the things that they, behind security and kind of keeping their home safe, it's about, what are my kids up to? What are my pets up to? What are my elderly parents who may live at home as well? You may have an older parent or family member that you just want to keep an eye on. And I think those are things that can get brought to life with, this camera video technology. I think it's fantastic.
That's one of the things I haven't talked as much about, but it's really smart, because, my mom is in her mid to late 80s, living by herself. And it's one of those things that my brother is a smart home. I mean, he's just a big computer security tech guy, and that's what he does for work. So he's had it set up for a while at my mom's place, but he's got some cameras, cameras outside, cameras at the mailbox to see when the mail shows up, that kind of stuff, as well as some inside, just to make sure that, that in the morning she's gotten up, moving around, and without having him to literally go by the house or continue to call and bother her. But it's one of those things, if you put a camera in the living room and stuff like that, where there's not as big a privacy concern, you can check to make sure that, hey, my loved one is moving around, everything's well there, and you can kind of get a peek into their life to make sure that that they're healthy and safe. And I think that's a big thing moving forward with smart home technology is, we had that I've fallen but I can't give up. This is a whole new way to use smart home technology.
Yeah. I think we're there now with some technology, to be honest. We call it the aging in place use cases and the constraints that we have from, baby boomer generations. Lots of them want to stay in their homes a lot longer than they have historically. There's limited infrastructure from, a nursing home and assisted care facility type of side. So how can technology help ensure that people can live enjoyable lives kind of in their homes? And I think you're spot on with that balance between privacy and what the aging parent or aging loved one is willing to give up. That's the $1 million question, which is, can you create experiences with technology that don't encroach so far into the privacy? So how can you use sensors to know when, that someone got out of bed every day, or you put a sensor on the fridge to know that the fridge, hey, it typically opens between 7 and 8 a.m. because that's when they get their, orange juice and water out of the fridge. Those types of things where you're measuring and monitoring actively things that are happening in the home, but then you're only alerting to things that are abnormal. That comes back to that AI and ML stuff that I talked about earlier. And look, we're not spending our cycles thinking about that yet. This is kind of a little bit further out, but how can you just be notified when things are abnormal? Like, hey, your mother typically does X, Y, and Z at this time. That didn't happen. And then the second checkpoint was she typically does X, Y, and Z at that time, or she turns the TV on typically at this time. And, we've got the connection into their TV system and it's not on. So then you might start to put the story together that, hey, something is probably worthwhile for a check-in.
Yeah.
To trigger, you
something to raise the eyebrow. Something to raise the eyebrow. It's just that, what's going on there? And you're right. I mean, that's one of those things. And this was a great example. I was out speaking at a gig out there in Boston here earlier this year before everything kind of closed up. And it was pretty wild because I popped into this company called Sense, and they do, home energy monitoring. I've worked with them for a little while, and they've got that. They use AI in theirs, and they had just been talking to somebody and realized that when they took a deep dive into their system, that the starter motor on their heat pump wasn't firing off correctly, that the starter motor had quit, and they were on emergency heat. So they could actually notify and say, hey, you've got a heat pump problem at your house. You better get a technician out there to do it. And it was all caught by using the home energy monitoring part of that. And I think that's going to be one of those things too, that I think that as we get better with technology, I think you're going to be able to limit house fires because you'll see that there's a problem with the electricity before it happens.
Yeah. There's, two quick anecdotes. I have the Sense product in my house,
okay,
which is a great one as
it.
well. And I know it. And I worked with my HVAC tech when our AC stopped working and the compressor was gone bad, and you could tell that the capacitor was when I looked at the chart of where our voltmeter was or what have you, it was spiking so high that I knew something was wrong. So I showed him that graph, and he's like, "Oh, that's really fascinating." Well, this is what's actually happening because he knows what he's talking about, and I don't. And he took care of it really quickly. But the thing that I do want, there's a product that I recently came across called Ting. It's a TING.
Okay.
And it is I'm not doing an advertisement for another company, but I think it's a cool product that plugs into your electrical outlet, and it's actually measuring the electrical system in your home. And exactly to that point, it's testing and looking for arcing. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, it kind of sends you alerts on your phone. So I think that type of situation is when you come back to the insurance use cases. I think I've heard you talk about those in the past too. The water damage, the smoke damage, and I think the electrical fire damage is another one in there. That hey, how can technology help improve and reduce those problems?
Yeah, and the great thing is if we get that stuff dialed in, it makes our insurance rates lower as a whole. So if we could stop, insurance claims, cut those back by 30 or 40%, I would expect to see some rate reductions out there because we're not seeing those things happen as much. And it's just common economic sense that if we can, as a people, cut those things back and stop some of the needless stuff, that's where smart home stuff is really cool. And it gets exciting to me that we can actually maybe save some lives. We can stop some property damage because that's just a waste of money for everybody. And it's a huge stress on a family as well when they've got, we just flooded our kitchen, so we can't cook for the next 2 months as we get this put back together. And it's never easy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we actually integrated or have a partnership with a company called Hippo, which is a insurance carrier that popped up in the last couple of years. Startup, tech forward, and they're actually doing exactly what you're describing. They're using technology and hardware in the homes to monitor smoke and water leak sensors,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that system in this InsurTech space, they're able to offer lower rates than what would normally be gotten from a traditional home insurance company. So I think that's definitely a great use case for some of this technology.
It's no different than people putting that little sensor in their OBD part in their car called, hey, I'm going
to drive safe and save. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same kind of thing. And I think that's where when we can save money for homeowners out there, it's a smart thing. Well, man, what else do we need to talk about today? This is great. I love getting on here with you and talking about this stuff because, Raman, this is good information. I think people should be taking a look at, what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing is like, hey, people are going to have different levels of comfort, different levels of need, and as a Comcast or an Xfinity Home, kind of our mantra has been like, look, we need to design products for different segments. We need to give customers choices. They're not all going to want the same thing. And so how do we kind of make that as efficiently as possible, which is why we launched the camera product, self-protection as a service.
Mm-hmm.
So, now I don't know if you saw that, but we've got our traditional home security product under Xfinity Home that is your traditional, 24/7 monitored experience. But then with self-protection, which is the new service, that's at a much more affordable value price point at $10 a month. And that's where you get all this value around the cameras, the motion notification, the digital security, super easy onboarding. Like our cameras load up and get online within 2 minutes, I'm sure, as you did from your install.
Yeah.
But it's but the security kind of element of that is kind of where we wanted to lean in as well. So it's I think that's kind of our play right now, is to help customers at kind of both of these ends of the spectrum right now. You have your kind of traditional pro monitored customer, mm-hmm. and then you have this kind of self-monitored customer. And look, we're going to try this and kind of see how we can better solve our customer needs. Man,
thanks for coming on. And yeah, like I said earlier, I'm super impressed, and I got that camera set up, and I'm like, oh, I've got multiple cameras around here, but the first one I hooked up, I'm like, that was the easiest camera setup I've ever had. Because I tell you what, I don't care what brand out there, there's sometimes a little bit struggles because your internet's, at least at my house, it always seems that I'm going through 2 different walls or whatever to get out there. And it's always, it can be a struggle trying to get those far-reaching cameras to work. And the way you guys designed that, brilliant, and made it really easy to come online. It was maybe a minute, and I had that thing up and running. I was looking at it, and it's for self-install. That's awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Eric, it was fantastic talking to you, and I really appreciate the time to talk a little bit about kind of stuff we're doing, and I'd love kind of your insights on the smart home space, so really appreciate the time.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming on today. This is Raman Sidhu with Comcast Xfinity. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. You don't want to miss the next episode coming up? Wellness by Design, a book by Jamie Gold, CKD, just as soon as Around the House returns. By the way, thanks for listening to Around the House.
Around the House with Eric G. is produced by, designed by Eric G. in association with Salem Media and distributed nationally by the Sun Broadcast Group. All rights reserved. Copyright 2020, designed by Eric G. We will be back next week. If you missed part of the show, check out the podcast of all of our shows at AroundTheHouseOnline.com. Remember, measure with a micrometer, mark with caulk, and cut with an axe. Thanks for listening to Around the House.
Hey folks, Jim here, producer of Around the House Show. You're loving the audio tips right now, but here's something new. Our full-length episodes and expert interviews are now on YouTube as video, so you can watch the demos, tool close-ups, and guest interviews, or just hit play and listen like a regular podcast. Just search Around the House Show on YouTube, hit that red subscribe button, and turn on notifications. It's free. And you'll get the best of both worlds, visual how-tos when you want them, audio when you're on the go. Don't forget to subscribe on your podcast app too. Thanks. And now back to the show.